I know Don. I've known Don for, oh man, I don't know, since 2007, he said, is when he came here. So yeah, I just encourage you to stay. I'm going to sing one song. And yeah, you will be very blessed by how God moved in his life, how he went from, really a hard life to just, wow, like redemption. And that's our story, right? So I want to sing this song called Broken Vessels about the amazing grace of God and how he takes the broken things and he makes these broken vessels, these hurt, like we all have these hurts, and he makes us into something beautiful. So I'm going to sing Broken Vessels. Oh, these pieces, broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed, but not forsaken. I've been set free. I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. You take our failures, you take our weakness, you set your treasures in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now
I'll assume this is working and that you can hear me. Okay, folks, I'm Donnie, and I want to really thank you for the opportunity to come here and share my story. Thank you so much, Reagan. I know you've worked hard on this ministry, and you've kept the Sunday Night Fire going for quite some time. I did have the opportunity to come here before. That was 4 years ago, and it was a little bit tough. Lost my dad that same week, and but it was still good to come here and share. So I'm going to try to just cast everything aside and just share. There's a picture in my background here. I'm the one with the dirty face, but you probably figured that out. I might share a few of those things as we come along. I'm the oldest of 5. I've got 2 sisters and 2 brothers. My brothers are twins, and then there's a bit of an age gap, and then my sisters. Growing up, my parents, they split up when I was young. They were divorced. There was some things were, fairly difficult. There was, sometimes there was violence. Sometimes there was just tears. My dad was away quite a lot. He would work up north. Sometimes he was in prison. And, I kind of started off really just burying myself into schoolwork, into reading, into math, anything I could do to not have to really look at me. As things progressed, as they would, I got into drugs. I got into drinking. It was quite natural. I started to experiment quite young. And before you know it, I was 14 years old and doing hard drugs. And, the thing about that is it never got better. It only got worse. Maybe at first, for a while, it seemed like it was fun. It was kind of cool. But it just took over my whole life. And I didn't have, or at least I didn't think that I had a God in my life. And it was some years later, looking back, when I could see a lot more clearly where God really was in my life, whether I thought so or not. So let me just try to get there. I appreciate your patience as I'm stumbling along here, trying to figure out where this is going to go. It's a little awkward because I can't even see my audience. I just see myself. Oh, I see you. But, it's a little odd that way. But let's get going. My life, I just went full bore. I really went hard. I loved drinking and I loved drugging. And things would get way too out of control with one, and then I'd go over to the other one. At 15, I actually ran to Manitoba from Alberta because my drug use was pretty out of control and people were coming after me. And then I would go on these long bouts of using alcohol to get off the drugs. And then I'd use the drugs to get off the alcohol. And that was kind of the best I could come up with. You know, and you would think that I was going round and around, but really it was more of a downward spiral. Like I'd go around and around, but each time sinking down lower and lower and lower, and just inevitably feeling like there's just no way out. You know, and I'll share that the particular drug that I got hooked on really young was crack. And it wasn't called that in those days, but that's what it was. And I share that because the slang for it is rock. And somewhere within that desperation, and I'm going to get to there probably quite soon, but somewhere in that desperation, when I learned to read the Bible and I developed an appetite for it, I just remember that word, rock, you know, and how that was used. And how Jesus said he'll make us fishers of men. Right? And to me, I learned how to fish. And when I fish, I use some bait, you know, and he kind of set that for me personally. It was the whole idea of the rock, you know, the Lord is my rock. My God is my rock. You know, I will be your rock. It had a very different meaning to me than maybe most other people. But anyway, I ended up in the streets well before I thought I had a God in my life. And I've been reflecting back on some of that today, especially going through a lot of different things. And I actually found a video filmed by the police in downtown east side of Vancouver in 1999. And you know, I'd like to share at least a piece of that with you. It's a bit hard to watch for some. There's even some language in there that is colorful. You know, but if you're going to have a heart to serve in this kind of capacity, I guess you might need to expect to hear these kinds of things and see these kinds of things. And I can't even really describe what you would smell. It's kind of an experience, you know, you kind of really only get in person. So I know we're starting off slow, but I'm going to get rocking and rolling here. I promise you that. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this. Is the sound working, Reagan? So this is 1999. And this is where I was in 1999. I was 26 years old in this exact place.
You look very nice today. Oh, smart and dressed in.
Like our uniform?
I feel like, yeah, I do. I'm still trying to decide which pants I like best, but you know what? On second thoughts, I think I like the old ones better. I'm on Al's book.
You can patronize the old guy. That's okay.
I figured.
You know more coke these days, or?
No, I'm doing very little coke. This is what my major problem is cocaine.
Do you mind if I take a picture?
Yeah, okay. You can have my picture, sweetheart.
I've carried a camera with me throughout my entire career, off and on, and by showing little vignettes down here, little frozen images of the skids about how the life is down here, what the lifestyle is like, and show them to the kids, then it's a powerful medium which to present a message. That's what she does, okay? Drug addicts will inject wherever they can. Okay, there's this young lady, her name's Shannon. Is she a drug addict?
No.
She's 18 years old, down there in the downtown east side in front of a bar at midnight. How do you know she's not a drug addict?
She looks clean.
Yeah, she's clean looking. What does a drug addict look like?
A bum.
Thumb, down outer, right? Yeah, she looked like, looked like any of you kids, right? And this is her 6 months later. Same girl, 6 months later. What do you think's going on with her now? Yeah, she's on the needle now. Now she's a drug addict. She didn't know that she had an addictive personality before. She does now. You know, talk to the addicts down here. Ask them, say, did you intend on being a drug addict? Everybody will say, well, hell no. I was just down here to party for a while, or just using it to mask the pain. And now they're in a living hell. So that's the message we want to get out to kids. And then, of course, recently taking a video camera down here and having addicts themselves telling kids what it's like in their own words. Keep her out of it. We're out filming one of the first days we're out, and we saw this man just seated in an alcove, and I immediately recognized from the paleness of his face that he was in an overdose state.
To run back and grab our oxygen.
What's the matter, Nicola?
This idiot says I took his fucking cigarettes. Goddamn goof.
Available for another disturbance at 320.
Hey, you, buddy, mind your own fucking business. He's a trick. Move out of the area. People like you, we don't go for.
You probably got a point, guys. Go.
Take off, guys. He was in an overdose of heroin and with possibly some cocaine. He stopped breathing just as the ambulance showed up. And they had to bag him, put an airway in and help him breathe, give him the Narcan, and it took him a full 5 minutes to come around.
Breathe. Big breath. Sit up.
There you go.
Sit up. Take the thing out of your mouth with your hand. There you go. That boy.
How did that get in there?
Good. You're back from the dead, sir.
Okay. I've just got to shut this off on my end. Sorry, I can still hear it. Okay. Again, it's for me, that's a bit emotional to watch. Like I say, I mean, I was right there at that time, you know, and I don't know if you saw, like, there was some graffiti at the beginning, and Jesus was scribbled up on the wall, and the fella who they cut his shirt open, he was wearing that wooden cross, you know, and I know where that comes from too. That they give you those in prison, actually. But anyway, when I was there, I didn't have the Lord in my life yet. But I did spend, it was Christmas Eve, in particular, of 1999, when I was right there. you know, and I was hanging with some dumpster divers, and I got kicked out of their house, you know, and I'd been kicked out of some places before, but you know, when you get kicked out of the dumpster diver's house on the downtown east side of Vancouver on Christmas Eve, I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I mean, there's nowhere to go. There's just nowhere to go. So I guess there was somewhere to go, because eventually I ended up reaching out for some help. You know, and I'm really glad I did. There were some opportunities out there. You know, I was able to get into some treatment, and it was helpful, at least for a time. But I could only get so far, because what I didn't understand is that I had a spiritual disease. But I didn't even know what spiritual meant. You know, I mean, I knew of some Christians, you know, and like, I didn't really know what they would do and stuff. I knew they had Bibles and sang and preached, I guess. But, I mean, they sure weren't around me. But anyway, after some time of being in and off and on the streets and these different treatment programs, there is a few things that stand out. And one of the first ones is looking back on my life. Now, here I am believing I'm an atheist. And I'm looking back on my life, and I'm remembering a time when my brother got run over by this great big cement sewer pipe. We were playing in it. Like you could go inside on this little ladder, and then kids would roll it. You'd roll upside down, and other kids would walk on top because there was only so much room. And he was up there, and he fell off in front of it, and the thing rolled right up to his chest before we could stop it. And we pushed it off of him, and he just laid there like lifeless, paralyzed. You know, and I ran to the doctor's office, full steam ahead, and just cried and begged God with everything I had, please don't let him die. Now, this is super important because I wasn't questioning whether God was real. In that moment, every fiber of my being knew God was real, and I was begging him, don't let him die. Right? And he didn't die, and he actually did have quite a miraculous recovery. Like he was paralyzed for some hours, and like the next day he was fine. You know, and you would think that that would be enough to maybe transform a whole family into believing, but it didn't. Not even me. Like I forgot until all those years later. You know, God was confronting me with this memory. And I was like, man, I'm a liar. I've been telling all these people that I don't believe in God. But I'm like, what I sure did that day. And I think, you know, that was a really critical part, because that gets me going, right? It's like, okay, buddy, you know, you can't argue that. I can argue anything else I want, but I can't argue something like that, especially when it's my own. So that got the ball rolling, and it was, you know, just years of in and on and off the streets. So from 99, 2007, Reagan had mentioned that was when I, you know, came into Fort Frances. So those years in between involved a lot of ups and downs and back into the streets and really not doing very well. And I found myself in Surrey. Surrey's a tough town. And there was a day that I went into a street church. And I had missed lunch. They gave out soup, but I had never been there before. And the guy, the pastor, there was a couple guys in there. I don't even know if they were pastors, but you know, he looked at me and said, you know, we're out of soup. But the other one said, he's not here for soup. I know what he's here for. And they brought me into the back and they prayed over me. We sat at a table and I recited the sinner's prayer. And I asked Jesus into my heart that day. Now, I could tell you that it was a miracle and I never used drugs again or drank alcohol and had a great life. And that would be a great story, but it wouldn't be my story. Now I got Jesus in my heart, but I don't know him. And I'm still out there doing the same things I've always done. And it couldn't have been long after that I'm sitting on these steps. There's a little 2-block stretch in Surrey. It's like just a terrible strip, 2 blocks long. And this man comes up to me. These Christians were doing a prayer walk. This man named Daniel comes up to me and sits down and he's talking to me and he asks if he could pray for me. And then he says, Don, do you want a bed tonight? I said, yeah, I do. And this man brought me into his home, washed my clothes. He bought me a pack of cigarettes. He fed me. He had 2 children, 2 boys. Like I'm not saying I recommend this, but this is what he did for me. You know, and then the next day he took me to this place called Wagner Hills Farm. It's out in Fort Langley. And it's a Christian farm for men. And I got there and I really didn't know. I just didn't know. So I was getting interviewed by the lead pastor, an old fella named Helmut. And man, he was so awesome. But I thought I was interviewing him. So, because I wasn't sold, you know. I had a lot of arguments against the Bible. Now, I had never read it, but I definitely had a lot of arguments against it, right? And he was so patient and just so kind, you know, and anything I said, he could give me answers. And I've got a scientific way of thinking. And I don't want to hear, well, just take your science and throw it away because it doesn't mean nothing. Because probably I would have left. But that's not the approach he took with me. Any question I had, he sat down and examined it with me and gave me, something where I could go, wow, that could be. That could be, you know. And I thought I had him for sure at dinosaurs. I was like, okay, yeah, what about dinosaurs? Mic drop, right? Like I just completely destroyed your whole theological lifetime study by saying that, right? And he just smiled. And he said, Don, you know, in the Bible it says that God created Adam. And he was a man. He was a fully mature man. He wasn't a baby. He said, so, I don't know, maybe God created a fully mature earth. What? Because I'm thinking, well, they got all this like carbon dating and stuff that says it's billions of years old. And I'm hearing this doesn't add up. And he laid it on to me like that. And I can't tell you whether what's what. I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I can tell you is that was reasonable to my way of thinking. I thought, okay, that could be. And I made him a deal. I said, okay, well, because they were taking my smokes away. I made him a deal. I said, well, you hang on to them things for 3 days while I decide if I'm going to actually stick around here. Because if I'm leaving, it's a long walk and I'm going to want my cigarettes back. And he said, okay. And of course I stayed. and I learned. It was wonderful. I learned a lot. I learned how to pray. And then on Bible study day, which was probably nearly every day, but this particular day, we're sitting in the chapel and they hand me a Bible. And I'm going to use as an example, I think they said, everybody turn to John 3:16. And they're talking about how God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten son. And I'm standing there confused, looking like a deer in the headlights. And they're like, something wrong? Oh, yeah, right? Like, you gave me the wrong book. You're like, what? We didn't. That's the Bible, Don. Like, we didn't. It's not the wrong book. That's the right book. And I'm like, but I'm on page 316. And I have no idea what you're talking about. It is not on here, right? And I saw this look in their eyes, and as they realized, I had never held a Bible in my life. I had no idea that they were actually giving me directions of what book and verse. Like, I didn't know. But then I started to learn, and maybe I didn't, I didn't quite make it. They wanted me there a year. I made it 2 months, and then I was allowed a day out. And unfortunately, the first chance I got, I went back to my old ways, right? And they knew. Because when my day came, I was supposed to get a whole day out, and they're like, no, we're only going to give you 2 hours. And that was enough. And I ended up using them. And then I turned myself in, and they had an automatic, you're out. There was no two ways about it. That was the rules. And in my case, they actually begged me to stay. It was such an amazing experience in my life. Easter happened while I was there, because I actually carried that big, huge cross to one of the stations in a prayer walk. And that was another great memory, was all us young guys, we're all in our 20s. There had to be 50 of us. And we're walking through Fort Langley doing a prayer walk. We're praying over all the people in the homes and everything all around us. But we're a mob of like 20-year-olds. There's like 50 of us. Like people must have been terrified locking their doors. Who would even believe you, right? No, it's a prayer walk. But it was. And, and I ended up going back out again, and just in and out, except that now I got Jesus. I got a taste. I'm getting to know who he is. I'm still not living, free. I don't maybe understand that I'm already free. I've come to believe that addiction is a lie. A very real lie, but a lie. Because if it was true, I would still be addicted. So it can't be. I'm not going to read a lot of scripture. It's not what I'm kind of here to do. I'm here to just tell you what God did for me. But I'll read a little, because I like this one. This one stands out for this kind of a talk. It says, if you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience. And God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. And there was always a way out. Always. Maybe it didn't look like it, but there always was. I got a few little, virtual backgrounds going over this stuff with Reagan earlier. I just thought I'd show you some of them at least. And so not the least of which is this. So that's where I was living in July of 2007 in a back alley in Edmonton. And I ended up through one way or another in Fort Frances. Now I stopped off, my brother came through town and we got going on a little bit of a party. I could see the shame in his eyes. He saw what I looked like. There's what I looked like. And he's like, man, you need to go to mom or something. So he bought me a bus ticket, non-refundable, to go to Winnipeg. And I did, and I was there about a week, and really nothing had changed. It was still same old stuff. But this time, I went to welfare. They gave me some money. They gave me a job. They gave me a job in Fort Frances at Norfab, and they bought me a hotel room and gave me a check so I could get there. And I spent the check and went on a little bit of a party. And then on Sunday, I had this overwhelming feeling that I was missing out and that I needed to get there. I felt very strongly I had to go there. Besides, there was a job in a hotel room, and that's a lot more than I had anywhere else. So I did that. I landed in Fort Frances, not easily. I ended up sleeping in a ditch on the way and got to my job at like 5 to 8 in the morning and never made it to my hotel the first night. And long story short, that first day was rough. I actually quit the job, but I talked to the boss and he convinced me to give it another shot the next day. And I did. And I went and looked around for some help. And I was able to find some. And then, I went to a church because there was other churches in my story by this point in time. I guess I skipped a whole bunch. I'm going to just backtrack a little bit. I found myself in jail in Edmonton. I was, that's what's going to happen. I'm hanging around the people that go to jail. And I found myself in there. And while in there, I grabbed onto this leaflet. And it ended up being an introduction for a Bible study. And I did the course while I was in there. And I did the whole thing. I got this big appetite for the Bible. I just loved reading it. And I would do my lessons and they'd get mailed off and then it would come back and I'd get some feedback and then a new one. And that was really great. In fact, when I got out of jail, I went to go stay with a cousin of mine out of town. And I probably could have got a ride or taken a bus or something. But instead I hitchhiked because it was okay for them to know I just got out of jail. But I didn't want them to know I was going to church. And so I hitchhiked out there and I found a church service. It was Good Friday. And there was a lot of things that happened there. Like I didn't plan to go to this one. I stopped at this one church just to ask for directions to the one I thought I was going to go to. But this lady said, well, no, you're not going to make it there in time. You should just come in here. What I didn't know was that lady who just invited me in had recently lost her son, who was roughly my age. He had OD'd. And then I get in there and I meet the pastor. And it was a lady who was a drug and alcohol counselor before she became a pastor. It was just like that. So these kinds of things just continue to happen in my life. God shots. right? And the more I would read the Bible, the more I would get into it, the more I get to know, and the hungrier I would get. So we've got all these things going on. Now I'm in Fort Frances. You know, I'm like, maybe I should find a church. So because that one that I ended up at happened to be Anglican, and I thought, well, I'll go look for an Anglican one. So I went to one, and they were very nice. They treated me very nice, and I really couldn't say there was anything wrong with it at all. But I didn't go back. The next Sunday, I found myself out on the dock fishing. And then the following Sunday, I'd only been in Fort Frances maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And this next Sunday, I had a bicycle now, and I rode it out to Cooch to get some cheap cigarettes out at the reserve. And then I'm riding back. And if you are familiar with Fort Frances, you would know that coming back from Cooch into Fort, there's the overpass. There's that big hill, and the wind was blowing just incredibly hard. I'm standing up pedaling on this bicycle, and I'm just like, the wind is pushing so hard. And then I'm looking up at this hill. And I'm like, I can't even hardly pedal on the flat. There's no way I'm going to be able to pedal up the hill. And I look over, and there's this thing that says New Beginnings. It's probably a church. Pretty sure they'll let me use the phone. So I went in to use the phone, phoned a friend of mine, a new friend, obviously. He was going to take me fishing that day, like in a real boat and everything. So I was super excited, and I phoned him up, and he says, you know, I'm running a bit behind, Don. I'm going to be about an hour and a half, but I'm still happy to come pick you up. Where are you going to be? And as that happened, the worship started. And I heard it, and I heard the music play, and I just felt it. And I said, you know what? I'll be right here. Just pick me up here. And I went into the church, and what a time it was. You had no pastor. It was a brand new building, and everybody was kind of taking turns sharing their testimony each week, and it was wonderful. And I was home, and I came every Sunday from then on, and I would show up, and I was considered. I had this sweater that I always wore. It had a couple holes in the back that apparently resembled bullet holes, and and I got adopted out of that deal by the Booths, because Linda said to Tom, go talk to that man with the bullet holes in his sweater, see what he's doing for Thanksgiving. I don't know, never really gave it a lot of thought. Well, you'll come to our house. Oh, okay. And bam, I had that going on. My life was rapidly moving forward. At some point in there, I think around the first month, I got her. Nikina. I got Stinky Dog in my life. And what a blessing. She gave me responsibility, but she taught me lessons. And in my own way, she taught me about God. And God, spelled backwards, is dog. Right? And I got looking at life a little bit differently, because I love that dog. Man, I love that dog. But if that dog wanted to run out the door into the street, she's probably going to get hit by a car and killed. So, I'm not going to let her do that. So sometimes she might not understand why she's in trouble and why I'm running after her and dragging her back in. She may just think, boy, he's being mean or whatever. When really, it's because I love her. It got me thinking. I wonder how many times God does that to me. there I goes again, out the door. He's going to run right out in the street, get hit by a car, you know, and that opened my eyes. So here we are. We're in Fort Frances. I am now a regular church goer. My life is moving like fast. I went back to school. I got all these wonderful things happening. You know, my sisters, they're talking to me. I'm a good brother now. Finally, I'm not really talking to my brothers because I'm trying to like stay out of trouble. You know, and they come out, visit a little bit, support me and my mom, and things were really going well. And then, of course, I ended up having to move. And that was hard. That was so hard. Like for the first time in my life, I had this like a real church family. You know, Pastor Dave had come for the interim for a while, and then Pastor Marcel came. Oh yeah, where's this one? Let me find it. This is a gooder. I should have made a slideshow. There it is. So that's a really, really special day. This is in 2008. And that was the day of a triple baptism. Varian, Reagan, and myself, we all got baptized almost across the street, right out there in Rainy Lake for all the world to see. What a thing. What a thing. You know? And then there it was. I was like, I had to move. And I didn't want to leave, you know? But it was time. And the support I got, you know, from the New Beginnings Fellowship, even financially. I mean, you guys just loved me back to life so strongly. And you guys were like shoving money stuff in my pocket, you know, and gave me a real fighting chance at having another good life. Like I showed up there with a little green bag. July 2007. And in 2008, I think it was like September, you know, I left. I drove away in a car that I owned, and I had a whole bunch of other stuff that folks helped me bring, and that was a miracle. And now it was time to kind of stand, you know, because that first year it was easy. I was so surrounded, right, by the church and by this, you know, the recovery community. They were loving me up, and there was nowhere to go but up. Everything was so easy. Then I moved, you know, and things got hard again. But I knew what I wanted. I knew what I needed, right? I needed to find another church. I needed to build a new net. You know, and I was able to do that. And I found this little church where the pastor, he was a motorcycle mechanic. I didn't have a motorcycle yet, but I still thought that was really cool. And I started going there. Not maybe quite as faithfully, but I did. And that would have been Pastor Ivan. And I'm a member of that church today. But I kind of left and came back, and there's a new pastor there. But that's the church I go to today. I'm just some of the miracles, right? Coming off of those streets, having the obsession removed. I don't crave alcohol. I don't think about drugs. It's been removed. Is a miracle. I can have relationships in my life today with my sisters. I can't see, but they're on here somewhere, you know, and I got to walk each one of them down the aisle. God gave me that. You know, I won their trust back, and I got to do that, and I get to be a part of their lives. You know, and things got hard again. Things didn't just get great and then stay great. You know, my mom, our mom, she died. She got cancer and died right after she turned 57. And before she did, she wanted to get baptized. And I got to hold her hand and walk her into the baptism tank. And I have her certificate here. So I get to see my mom again. You know, I'm promised that. I get to see her again in heaven. What a beautiful thing. Things got really hard. I lost a lot of very close people to me. You know, Tom Booth, my dad. And those all happened in a fairly close period of time. With my dad, it was, you know, it was difficult. I'm a lot like my dad. You know, and he lived a hard life. He lived a wild life in many ways. And towards the end, I just so strongly wanted him to get free, to experience, to taste the freedom that I'd been given. And I was able to express that to him in love, you know, but he ended up passing when I thought he was getting better. Like I thought he was going the other way, and I was kind of blinded, and then he passed. And a cousin of mine, she raced. She dropped everything at her job, drove to the last ferry on the island, and then drove all the way to the hospital in New West and got the phone to his ear. And all that could come out, I was crying so hard, and all that could come out was Jesus. And that's the last thing I ever said to my dad. Jesus. You know, and I don't know. I don't know if he heard. I hope he did. I hope he did. You know, and I gotta believe that he did. And that, you know, and that he was given that, and that he's there, and he's waiting. You know, and we'll, unfortunately, this is my story. This isn't necessarily an easy story. You know, and I struggle. I have my moments. I have my times when I'm doing really well. And I have my times when I'm just not doing well. Sometimes I feel like such a failure as a Christian. And then I I think of guys like David, King David, and I'm like, well, if he was a man after your own heart, surely I got a chance, right? Because if you haven't read the Bible, if you don't know the stories in there, like I did, you might be convinced that it's full of like really perfect people in there that only did really great things. And you will be astonished, as I was, to read it and just be like, wow. There's some very real messy people in there. And God can use them. And God can use me. And if God can use me, if he could pull me right out of that box, right out of those streets, and bring me here and give me this great life, he could do that for absolutely anybody. You know, I have had the privilege of bringing a few people to the Lord. I'm a member of a small group, and one of my sisters joined, and I led her in the sinner's prayer. And I can't even tell you how special that is. This is my job, to tell you what God has done for me in my life. Today, my life is actually really good. I've got a great job. You know, I really don't need anything. You know, and I feel a pulling. I'm going to share one last thing, I think. And this was on the streets of Edmonton. And these two men were talking to me in this doorway. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they came from. Just suddenly they're talking to me. And they're telling me matter-of-factly, Don, you're going to get clean. Like, oh, really? Yeah. And you're going to get a house. Yeah, right. They're telling me all these things matter-of-factly. And then you're going to get another one. And then on that point, they kind of talked a little bit back and forth, as if they were like negotiating my future somehow. And maybe they were. And then they said, and then it'll be time for you to go to work. That'll be time for you to start. That's when you're going to give back. And I feel like that time, I watched that video and just cried. You know, and I know how to talk. I know what to give. You know, you can give them a sandwich, but you don't give them a new hoodie. You just give somebody down there a new hoodie. The drug dealer's going to get the new hoodie. That's just the way it is. Pair of socks? Oh yeah, big time. Best thing ever. Pretty hard to pawn off a pair of socks. But it's the time. It's the time. Daniel sat down with me. He prayed with me. He talked to me. That's how he made that difference in my life. And that's how I've got to make the difference in other people's lives. And if you're looking to make a difference in life, you know, you may not be going down a skid row, but whoever it is, give them that time. Sit down and get to know them. Pray over them. Make sure they hear Jesus loves them. And that has got to be where I'm going to end today. I have no idea how long that was. Thanks for listening.
Okay. Where's that scripture? Okay, so therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Yeah, wow. Thank you, Dawn, for sharing. If you feel led and you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, share to your social media. I mean, we could all benefit from a testimony. And I'll always remember when Dawn first walked into our church, and it became one of our family. And you know what? New Beginnings is that type of place. This place will love you. This place is full of broken vessels. None of us are perfect. We all have our struggles. We've all been hurt. We all come from messy backgrounds. Me too, We all do. But it says in the Bible that he who is forgiven much loves much. And so we're a church that will love you. So if you're looking for a church, New Beginnings Fellowship on the highway, if you're riding a bike, maybe God will make the wind really strong so that you have to come here, or you'll get a flat tire on your way to the Cooch getting cigarettes. I don't know. But all that to say that, if you don't know Jesus and you want to know him, you just ask him into your heart. You say, God, I'm sorry for my sins. I'm sorry for running away from you. And just talk to him. Talk to him like he's right there. He's relational. He made us relational. God's a relational God. And if you need more information, you can text me in my Facebook Messenger or, call the church. And there's going to be somebody here to love on you. And God will bring the right people at the right timing. So thanks for watching. And God bless.